Hello, BookTube. This is Lindy. Welcome to another Friday Reads at Lindy's Magpie Reads. So, let me catch you up on what's been happening this week before I get to the 8 books that I finished, plus one bale. It was my birthday earlier this week. I have entered my 63rd year, for those of you who are curious. And one of my gifts was an iPad, my first ever iPad. And I'm pretty excited about using it to edit videos for BookTube and also to read ebooks and electronic graphic novels. I've already tested it out with issue 56 from Saga, the fantasy sci-fi ongoing series by Brian Vaughan and Fiona Staples. If you don't know it, check it out. There's going to be details of all these books I'm talking about are in the notes below. But I'm not going to say much more about this separate issue of Saga because I'm going to wait until it's compiled into a trade with, usually they do 6 issues together, and there's been an interruption in the series and it just started again with issue 55 in January, which I did buy a paper copy of. Now I can catch up on the library's Hoopla platform and read, the issues that have been coming out every month since then. Really nice to see on a big iPad. Previously, I've read ebooks either on my phone or on my laptop. So, as you can imagine, this is a big improvement and I'm very happy. So also for my birthday, I had some fancy donuts from a place called Donut Party. Reason being, I had a $10 gift card from a local bookstore, Glass Bookshop. They were giving out these gift cards if you bought a book when they were having a sale. So I bought a couple of books. I don't usually do book hauls, but I'll just mention I got local author Sandra S.G. Wong's book, In the Dark We Forget. I will talk more about this when I read it. And another one that I'm quite excited about, a book about mushrooms. What a Mushroom Lives For by Michael Hathaway. So, all I know about this is that the author is looking at a different view of the world. Instead of, we are typically human-centric or animal-centric, and this one is fungi-centric. So, I love mushrooms. I think they're fascinating. Yeah, I also got an unwelcome book gift. This was just dropped off in the mailbox down my whole street. Something called The Great Controversy. It's a fat book. Subtitled The Untold Story Behind the Vatican's Rising Influence in America. For those of you who don't know, I live in Canada. Anyway, so this is in the mail. It has got chapters like The Origin of Evil and Snares of Satan. But no matter how tempting that is, look at the print in this. Right to the margins. Very ugly. I would never read a book with such bad design. Yeah. This actually made me think about one of those semi-tractor trailer publicity things. I don't know if you've seen this before, but it's pretty common here in Alberta in the countryside where people will park one of these semi-tractor trailers in a field and then the side of it is used like a billboard. So I saw this one when I was driving to Whitehorse. Something about, where are the miracles? Yeah, where are they? Miracles are things like presents from my friend Sean the Book Maniac, So these arrived in the mail this week. A lovely little package of 3. They came all the way from Japan when he was clearing out his bookshelves. A collection of stories translated from the Dutch called The Dandy. Author is Nina Polak. This one is Welsh, and it is about Dr. William Price. And this one is a novel by Reginald Arkell called Old Herbaceous. Sean read the first chapter to me. He was reading aloud to me while I was recovering from a concussion, and I just loved the sound of this. So now I'm looking forward to reading the whole thing. What else? Earlier this week was Feminist Book Club. We discussed Dandelion. It's by Jamie Chai Young Liu. And we were all impressed, pleasantly surprised by the strength in her writing. She's a debut author. She's also an immigration lawyer, the author is, in Canada. And one of the book club members is daughter of an Asian immigrant, and she found the portrayal and dilemma of the main protagonist, who's daughter of an Asian immigrant to Canada, that she could really relate to her struggle with belonging to her mother's culture, or whether or not she could belong to her mother's culture. I did talk about Dandelion in an earlier Friday read, so I'm not going to say anything else about it here. I'm going to go on to what else I was doing this week. I spent 5 hours yesterday with attending an online conference put on by the School Library Journal, and it was called Picture Book Palooza. So there were lots of different half-hour panels. I heard about some great picture books that are being released. It was very interesting to hear picture book artists talk about their work. 2 books that particularly struck me that I'm really looking forward to. They're coming out in September, and they're both biographies, one of Toni Morrison and one of Maya Angelou. On Her Wings by Jardine Nolan, and the artist is James Ransom. And the other one is by Renee Watson, illustrated by Brian Collier, and that one is called Maya's Story. I'm going to pop in the cover so you can see this gorgeous art by Brian Collier. He's multi-award winning. But this cover in particular really reminds me of the printmaking artist Delita Martin of Black Box Press. I'm going to include a link to her website below, just because I love her art so much. Anyway, what else? Oh, heartbreaking news about transphobia and homophobia in Canada. Just in the past few weeks, I only just learned of it this week. There's this group called Action for Canada that has been inciting hate, and it seems to be behind these threatening letters that are being sent to public libraries in Canada. They're bogus, threatening legal notices, and the Canadian Federation of Library Associations has got a response and recommended action for libraries who get these sorts of letters. I will include a link or two to some news stories if you're interested in hearing more about this. In addition to these letters to libraries, there's also been a lot of hate towards drag story times that are put on by public libraries in Canada. And yeah, that is heartbreaking also. the Action for Canada website links which books that they're recommending that be removed from public libraries and school libraries across Canada. And they are from sexual orientation and gender identity recommended resource list for kindergarten to grade 12. And I worked on the very first list. I still have a copy of it. I think we did this in 2012. I worked on this with Dr. Chris Wells and with a colleague from Edmonton Public Library, Kim Endell. And yeah, I'm just so sad to see that this kind of hatred has moved from the US, and I'm very sad that it's there too, and now it's also in Canada. Anyway, on to my books. I mentioned I have one bail. It's quite relevant to what I was just talking about, because the book that I stopped reading is called Growing Up Trans in Our Own Words. The editors are Lindsay Herriot and Kate Fry. And I didn't stop because it's not good. It is. And I do recommend it if you're looking for this kind of book. So in addition to writings by trans and non-binary teens, there are a lot of sort of class workshop type questions and resources. I marked a student letter responding to the backlash on the sexual orientation and gender identity curriculum. And this student is anonymous, somebody between the ages of 14 and 17. And they said, I don't want to be afraid to go to school. I don't want to have to tear down signs and notes stuck on my locker. I don't want to have to wear my headphones while I walk in the halls so I don't have to hear the things these kids say about me. It is quite a moving collection by all these young writers. So this book comes out of a writing project called, I can't remember what the writing project is called, but I will link information to it down below. Next up, so out of these 8 books that I finished this week, 2 of them were rereads, 6 of them are 5-star reads. So, and 1 2-star read. So I'm going to end with my favorite, but all of these, aside from this 2-star, it'll be evident when I talk about it which one that is. The rest of these are really strong. You know, there was one that was like 4 stars tending upwards. Another one was 4.5, and I bumped it up to 5. So a really great reading week. I'm going to start with a long audiobook, 17 hours long, Kaikeyi. Now this is a reimagining of the Ramayana story from the viewpoint of the queen who banished Rama, Kaikeyi. And the story is written by Vaishnavi Patel, and the audio is read by Soneela Nankani. Very experienced audio narrator. She's done lots of audiobooks. Did a fantastic job with this one. I did not want to stop listening. I'm going to pop in a photo here of me. This is a typical going about my day. I've been working in the garden, brought in some flowers, headphones are on because I just did not want to stop listening to this very immersive story, and also very feminist. So Kaikeyi in this story is given a very good reason for banishing her son for 10 years or 14 years. I can't remember the length of time that they've used in this story, but anyway, she's concerned about the way her son's attitude towards women, and this is part of a conversation between them. Kaikeyi says, "Do you think a woman should be killed for infidelity?" And Rama's answer, "You might be different, Ma, but surely you know that most women introduce weakness into the world." Now, this story is from Kaikeyi's viewpoint. It's in first person. So here we have her follow-up. "It was as though I had been hit in the chest by a horse." She is going to do everything in her power to bring Rama around to a more feminist viewpoint. I loved it. And for those of you who look for ace content, Kaikeyi is definitely portrayed as ace in this novel. Here's a quote: "My disinterest in the marital bed and my lack of desire for Dasharat did not matter. I loved him like I would love a dear friend." Yeah. Oh, this book got me so excited about returning to Ramayana. I've read a number of different retellings of it. I find it a really exciting story. And so I reread Sita's Ramayana. This one is by Samhita Arni, and the artwork is by Moyna Chitrakar. The art was done first, and Chitrakar did it on a scroll using natural dyes to do the painting with, and then it was adapted into this graphic novel format. And I retired in 2015 and I still have a staff picks label on some of the books at the library. Anyway, sorry. Squirrel! Oh, and speaking of squirrels, monkeys, bears, and squirrels are part of the army that help Rama to defeat Ravana. And so I'm going to show you some of the interior parts of this graphic novel with close-ups rather than trying to flip through. It'll be easier to do if I just show you some of the interesting artwork. So this one is from Sita's viewpoint, and again, very feminist telling of this tale. Another graphic novel variation of Ramayana is Divine Loophole, and this one is by Sanjay Patel, a South Asian animator who lives in California, I believe. This one is very funny. Again, I am just going to pop in some of the scenes so that you can see what his work is like. There's Rama, the blue boy. He's an avatar of Vishnu, and so he's usually portrayed in all of Vishnu's avatars. are shown as blue usually, but it's actually different in this one. Rama is kind of a grayish green color. This is Ravana, the villain of the story, the cosmic bully. He's large and in charge, a one-man army. Highly recommend that one too. Kind of goes through the basics of the saga. And I also picked up this book that a friend loaned to me last year, and it's been sitting unread, even though I know I want to read it. Asura, subtitled Tale of the Vanquished, the story of Ravana and his people. It's by Anand Neelakantan. I'm only a few chapters in, so this one is from the viewpoint of Ravana, and I'm really liking it so far. It's a fat book. It's going to take me a while to get through this one, but I know that I will enjoy it all the way. And while I'm at it, I have another recommendation for a Ramayana retelling, and that is by Daljit Nagra. That one uses elements from not only India but surrounding countries and different versions of the Ramayana. Rama's journey is what that is about. And yeah, that's another goodie. Well, on to my next book, which is another retelling, and this one is called Spear by Nicola Griffith. I listened to the audio that was read by the author. Superb. If you like Arthurian tales and you're especially looking for lesbian or queer retellings, Nicola Griffith has got you covered, because this is a version of Percival and the Holy Grail. Percival is a young woman, Parator. She is just a fantastic hero in this story. Oh, love her to bits. So the setting is Wales in the 6th century. So this is after the Romans have withdrawn from Britain, and there are the treasures of the Tuath, which is a race of supernatural people in Ireland, or Celtic myth. And these treasures, did I say 5? There's 4 treasures: the sword, the stone, the cup, and the spear. The spear of the title. And so Paratur, she does have supernatural powers. She's half human, and her power has to do with understanding the emotional and physical experiences of all the living things around her. An old sheep, a tree, a fly, and this information helps her to act. And so there's a very a holistic sense to being connected to the world that I really enjoyed in this telling. And I also like the deliberate inclusion of people of color and people with disabilities in this story. So if you are a fan of legends retold, I definitely highly recommend this. Now I'm going to tell you about my 2-star read, and that is Lapvona by Otessa Moshfegh. She reads the audiobook. I have no complaints about her audio narration. And I have enjoyed one of her books in the past. I really liked My Year of Rest and Relaxation. And I abandoned Eileen at about the halfway point. So that's my prior experience with Otessa Moshfegh. Now this one, I was at the 38% mark, and I was very close to abandoning it. But the reason why I picked it up is because the Glass Bookshop has chosen this book for this month's discussion at the end of July. And I thought, well, let me just give it to the 40% mark. And if I still don't like it, I'm just going to give up. And that was all it took. Just a little bit more into the story, and I was hooked enough to continue. But I did expect that going through all of the grotesqueness of the story, which is kind of like a horror folktale set in a sort of quasi-medieval times, I thought that there would be a payoff at the end. And I did not find that. I won't say more about the ending. What I will say is that you need to be prepared to wade through a lot of filth. And when I say filth, I'm really talking about dirt. Like, you have peasants who are starving and they're eating dirt. They're eating excrement. They're eating other human beings. While at the same time, their feudal lord, who lives at the top of the hill, is feasting on every delicacy and having eating contests until people vomit. So, yeah, there's that. And I would say it's a book about existential despair, maybe, as well as being a message about religion being a farce. Yeah. It was definitely a disappointment for me. I know this book is being read by other booktubers, so if you're somebody who really liked this book, I'd like to hear about the strong points. Aside from the writing, actually, Moshfegh can write, and I would say that her writing chops are what carried me through this story. Her dark wit, especially the vividness of her prose. Vivid and gross. But, I mean, there's got to be more to it, I think, to enjoy this book. So, tell me what I missed, please. We're going on to another great book. So this one is a collection of poetry. Nothing Will Save Your Life. And it is by Nancy Jo Cullen, a lesbian poet, originally from Alberta, now lives in Toronto. And these stories have a much lighter wit to them. They're stories about growing old, a reminder of death, and that is what Lapvona is about as well. But Lapvona is more like those, you know, those paintings that were done in the Middle Ages with skeletons and rotting fruit and flies everywhere to remind people that they're going to die. That's Lapvona. This one is more about pop culture and two of the Beatles are no longer alive, you know, that sort of thing. Here's a little bit from a long poem called The Beau Monde. Mother said, now you know how it feels to be a woman, so we slipped our sorrow down into our heels, pushed our feet into pointy-toed shoes. And there are several parts. It ends with, we brought it on ourselves by our insufficiency and by the laws of attraction. It wasn't our intention to become our mothers. Nevertheless, we too reached peak invisibility. Our daughters, little magpies, collected shiny apprehensions. We said, now you know how it feels to be a woman. I actually chose that excerpt because of the magpies and my channel being called Lindy's Magpie Reads. I think I'll include a clip of magpies in the garden. Maybe I'll start out with that. So you'll have already seen it, and then I'll have some other shots of the garden at the end of this video. There is also a Tim Hortons reference in here. And Tim Hortons reference in this next book I'm going to tell you about. This one is set in Edmonton, a novel told in short stories, interconnected. Avenue of Champions by Conor Kerr. Such a pleasure to read good writing set in my own home city. The Avenue of Champions is a real thing, 118th Avenue in Edmonton. The main protagonist, Daniel, is of mixed ethnicity. He's Indigenous, Métis, and Cree, and so is the author. So the trials and tribulations of growing up in poverty and then having a chance at university. Your story of one of the stories in here recounts his high school guidance counselor who, when Daniel said that he was interested in going into maybe broadcasting or journalism, the guidance counselor directed him towards the trades instead. Typical racism in Canada. Heartbreaking and also heartwarming. This is one that I rounded up to 5 stars. And the Tim Hortons references, by the way, I will include a link below because I've just put a new post on my book blog of a whole bunch of references to this coffee shop that is popular across Canada. And whenever I encounter a reference to it in something that I'm reading, I make a note of it, and I've got more than 70 passages on my blog in a number of different posts. So if you're interested in that, it's actually a good way, I think, to get a taste of Canadian writing. Last up, best book of the week, My Volcano by John Elizabeth Stintzi. This is a non-binary trans author, Canadian, and this book is bananas. It's alternate realities. It is set in various summers of 2016 when a volcano started growing out of the reservoir in Central Park in New York City. The action takes place in various parts around the world. it reminded me of so many other stories. Authors like David Mitchell and Emily St. John Mandel and Kafka and who wrote How High We Go in the Dark, Sequoia Namagatsu, I think his name is, Yang Ge's Strange Beasts of China. There in here there are people with green bellies and shiny glassy sharp bits coming out of their skin. So if you've read Strange Beasts of China, you know what I'm talking about. It reminded me of traditional Baba Yaga stories, and there's also part of it that is set back in 16th century Mexico, Moctezuma's time. There's the pain of the world being experienced by some of these characters, and there's just so much tenderness and hope, as well as despair, I guess. Interspersed throughout the novel, there are pages where the only thing is a death notice for a real person or group of people who died in 2016. And this page here is Colton Bushy, August 9th, 2016. Was shot in the head near Bigger, Saskatchewan. He was 22. These tragedies of racist and transphobic violence really punctuate this story about what is going on in this world. I guess you could call it a pre-apocalyptic novel, and I don't know what else to call it except fantastic. If anything that I've said here makes you think, well, that sounds interesting, please pick this up and let me know what you think, because I'm just blown away by it. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will look forward to your comments and see you in the next video. Bye.